Hello wrestling fans, the Wrestling Wizard here, and welcome to another episode of Wizard Watch, the weekly show where we break down the top 5 in no particular order shenanigans from this week's episode of SmackDown. Now this week's SmackDown was of course the go-home show to this year's Royal Rumble. And it was a decent show. Now, before we get into the juicy stuff, as always, be really appreciative if you could like the video, share the video, and even better, subscribe if you're new. And as always, join the discussion and get down in the comment section. Now, I'm going in at top moment number 5 with the return of Lacey Evans. Now, I know this doesn't sound like absolutely groundbreaking news, but hear me out for a second. I honestly believe that this version, even though we only saw it for a few minutes in a matchup, is the version of Lacey Evans that should have been booked all along. The military Lacey Evans, the heel, the cocky, the brash, the arrogant, the authoritative Lacey Evans. And it was a dominant showing, delivering of course the woman's right and now her signature mover in of course the Cobra Clutch. Kudos to of course Sergeant Slaughter. And just little details with the fact that genuinely the sole of her shoe came off during the match and she sold it pretty well. Like, she recovered it pretty well and she seems really comfortable in this heel role and she gets a lot of heat as well. So I think this is a welcome character change from Lacey Evans. Fingers crossed they get things right moving forward with her character. Now, moving on at moment number 4, we got to talk about the Karrion Kross Rey Mysterio match. Now, I know this wasn't like match of the year, but this is certainly a case of unfinished business. I mean, the fact that Kross kicked out of Rey Mysterio's signature maneuvers and only got beat by a cheeky little pin. So the fact that Karrion Kross looks pretty pissed, as does Scarlett as well. This story is not over, and after all, Karrion Kross has wanted to take on Rey Mysterio for over a decade, as he said a couple of weeks ago, so you've got to think he's going to want a rematch. Now, it looks likely that we'll get an interaction between Dom and Rey Mysterio in the Royal Rumble with a setup to a WrestleMania match, potentially. But what if Rey Mysterio gets cost the Royal Rumble via Karrion Kross, and that sets up a matchup between the two of them at WrestleMania. Now, Rey Mysterio has been known in the past to give back on the grandest stage of them all. Well, he's given back a lot in his career as obviously a babyface throughout it. So he could put over Karrion Kross on the grandest stage of them all, and I don't think it's likely. I think he'd probably fight Dom. But if you go all the way back to WrestleMania 27, Rey Mysterio put over a certain Mr. Cody Rhodes, and that was one of the best matches, I think, at a WrestleMania that was underrated. It only really got overshadowed by The Undertaker and Triple H smashing it out the park in their no holds barred match, of course, at that show. That stole the show. But the Rey Mysterio Cody Rhodes match was absolute fire, and I know how much Cody Rhodes, appreciates Rey doing that at the time in Cody's original run. So what if Rey does the same, but this time puts over Karrion Kross? Now, I'd be skeptical about them putting on a clinic like Cody Rhodes and Rey Mysterio did, but who knows? I don't know why, but I also would really like to see Kross versus Edge. Like, that would be a little bit tasty if, of course, we see Edge return at the Royal Rumble, which I think we will. Now, moving on to moment number 3. This is a short segment. This isn't like a major talking point, but I liked the way the Viking Raiders came out and just viciously assaulted Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. And I got 2 words for this: ow and ow. Like, the way Ivar literally just rammed Drew McIntyre and Sheamus into the barricade was pretty brutal. And of course Eric's attack as well, those two looking the real deal. I love the inclusion of Valhalla as well. I really like that. I just think they work visually, they look intimidating, and they're a force to be reckoned with. I was skeptical about the way that they were going to use Drew McIntyre. Obviously, after Clash at the Castle, I thought, oh no, he was nearly the one to dethrone Roman Reigns, and then they're just going to have him go off into no man's land. But I like the fact they've paired him with Sheamus, because obviously Sheamus is immensely popular now, and they're two just badass baby faces. potentially short term in the tag team division, which I haven't got a problem with at all. I'm kind of liking it. Now, finally, moving on to moment number 2, we couldn't have a top 5 without talking about the gift that keeps on giving in Sami Zayn. It cracked me up when he just appeared out of nowhere from this production truck with a hoodie on, confronting Jay and thanking Jay for, of course, this Monday on Raw throughout that whole trial shenanigans. And, you know, this does not spell good things for Sami Zayn and Jey Uso moving forward, because they're both kind of completely disobeying, well, certainly Sami is disobeying Roman's orders. He didn't want Sami anywhere near an arena if it wasn't the Royal Rumble, and we saw him. And I would not want to be Sami Zayn. I really wouldn't have. Now, of course, the big question is, we saw Sami Zayn appear later in the Kevin Owens Solo Sikoa match. Did Jey Uso instruct Sami Zayn to get involved and help Solo Sikoa? That is the big question, because that is what happened. And just as you thought that Kevin Owens was going to beat Solo Sikoa, he hit the swanton, he went for the pin, and out of nowhere, Sami Zayn broke up the pin. Now, this is a really interesting dynamic, because at this point you think, hang on a minute, what is going on? Now, obviously, this absolutely infuriated Kevin Owens. Just look at that face. And he went on a full-on brutal attack of Solo Sikoa, hitting the pop-up powerbomb through the table and then battering Solo Sikoa with a steel chair. Now, it's worth noting, is Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens in sync? We just don't know about it, because if you think about it, like, surely Kevin Owens with a steel chair, bearing in mind the fact that Sami Zayn has just cost him his matchup against Solo, would batter the living daylights out of him with that chair, but he didn't. He battered Solo Sikoa instead. Oh, Roman Reigns is going to be pissed. Roman Reigns is not going to be happy. We're going to have to wait and see what unfolds at the Royal Rumble. It's going to go down, that's for sure. Now, moving on to moment number 1, I couldn't not talk about Bray Wyatt, LA Knight, Uncle Howdy, and all these shenanigans. Of course, what a moment from LA Knight. He is just absolutely smashing it out the park. He deserves all the kudos in the world. The fact that he came out, and I popped when I heard Live in Fear as well. I thought, oh my God, he's coming out. Bray's going to come out as, like, you know, the Eater of Worlds, Bray. And then talk about cheeky from LA Knight with the Hawaiian shirt on as well. And after the Ryan Satin interview, which we're going to cover in the next video, by the way, that was a low blow with the tiny little lantern I cracked up when he came out to the ring. And LA Knight is showing no fear whatsoever. He doesn't fear Bray Wyatt. He's not backing down. He basically promises to dump him on his ass when the lights go out at the Royal Rumble. And of course, just like that, we saw Bray Wyatt come out. Well, not really come out. He was in his rocking chair on the ramp, looking all creepy and eerie and menacing. And, you know, he had some lethal words. He said, I think we both know you ain't smiling on the inside. Tomorrow night at the Royal Rumble, you're finally going to meet the man you've been looking for. Now, who is this man? Of course, in the Ryan Satin interview, Bray, kayfabe maybe, said that the Fiend is dead. The Fiend is not coming back. But we know from the psychological reports that Bray tends to tell the odd lie and sort of bends the truth. Uncle Howdy has called him out numerous times as a liar. So is Bray telling the truth here? He has tried to resist the Fiend throughout this whole entire storyline until recently. So maybe, you know, he did say a couple of weeks ago, I am the Eater of Worlds. I am Uncle Howdy. I am him. Who is him? Is it the Fiend? Is it something darker and more sinister than ever before? We're going to have to wait and see. And he went on to say, because tomorrow night, when the lights go out, you'll see, with this creepy laugh. And then Howdy appeared. Now, note Howdy's gestures. He seems to do this, like, two fingers, like, rotation, like circle. Maybe that signifies things coming full circle. It's really interesting also to report that Fightful Select basically all but confirmed Bo Dallas is playing Uncle Howdy. So how does this all tie in the Royal Rumble? He keeps doing that gesture as well, like that, similar to the one we saw from the Rabbit, of course, in all the teaser promos up to this point. It's interesting to note as well, he did a sort of very Randy Orton-esque pose to Alexa Bliss a couple of weeks ago on Raw, So is Howdy going to show up and cost Alexa Bliss and help Bray Wyatt? Potentially, like, the questions keep going on and on. The list keeps growing. What do you think? Get down in the comment section and share your thoughts and opinions. Buzzing for this week's Royal Rumble. Can't wait. It's going to be so unpredictable. And I will catch you in the next video.